So let me share the screen. So you can go to the view reply and fill in the form, because basically I'm trying to, if you haven't, if those who are on the web, so what I'm doing now is, you can do it after, during the break. I also show this, is trying to ask you what are your available slots, that I try to make that most of you can do it. If in the rare case that none of you can do it, we will do it during the make-up period, which is the, I think December 4th and 5th, if nothing works out, or we can do some Zoom during the weekend, whatever, try to make you okay. The time I make is the time that I don't need to do teaching, but if it doesn't work, then I try again later. So this is trying to ask you the, I think the question is already in your, right? Okay, sorry. My mistake, I do it again, sorry. Because I thought they would, sorry. Let me do it again, sorry. Because I thought the question would appear in the question. It's Tuesday. The time I have is Tuesday morning, because Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon. Yeah, sorry. I didn't notice. I thought the title already there. They would put there, but you can just tell me yes or no. I don't have 5 days slot because I teach in the morning and the afternoon on Friday. So if don't worry, you can do it late. You can do it later. Okay? We can just start it. But I will just start it, and then you can do it later. Just try to see if anything works. If nothing works, then we will just So I think this is the question. Let me see if it works. There will be 5 questions. Then I just need your name. Anyway, just make sure that, I mean, there's a valid entry, and that's it. And yeah, I mean, you can do it now or do it later. I will just keep it on until during the break. I also keep it on, and then I will see how many of you have time, and then we will figure out. Okay. Because we need to at least have one makeup. Yeah. We can do it in the Zoom if you want. We can do it in the Zoom, but you can decide what to do. So there's no problem. You can do it in the Zoom. I mean, probably I still book the room in case some of you may want to do it. If we can, maybe Saturday. I don't know whether I can make the room, but let's see. Let's see during the weekday if it works. If it doesn't work, then we'll make the. No, just some Tuesday. Just some Tuesday. You are free. If not, then we figure out. Just tell me. I mean, if it conflicts with your usual schedule. It doesn't work, then doesn't work. Doesn't matter. No, it's just no. Doesn't matter. You don't have to. If everything fails, we'll do it on the Monday on the December 4th, because the makeup period for CHK. So I mean, don't worry. You don't have to worry about that. I mean, if it doesn't work, I mean, I will record the class anyway. If you make up, because I try to see how likely I can accommodate most of you. If the worst case nothing works out, then we make the exam take home. Then I mean, we probably just figure out how to do with that one. Yeah, yeah. Is that okay? Because that's for the Chongyuan Festival. We need to make up somehow, and I might probably need to make up another class because of I'm going to present in Macau. There's a micro theory conference, which you also recommend. You also advise to also can attend. I mean, but but I guess not. I mean, if you want to go, you can go. I mean, they say open for all for that one. Okay, I will keep it there until the very end of the class and see. Maybe after second break we will see what are the things, and then we might decide. But don't worry. I mean, the worst case we just do the Zoom. Probably at the very end. So then the makeup thing will not appear in the test, so you don't need to worry. Probably we'll make it at the end, so that you don't feel worried about that. Let's see what we can do. Okay, and can you hear me from the Zoom? Can you see the screen? Is it okay? Because today we have many people from the Zoom. Is that okay? Good. Okay. So I think everyone is in. Yeah. Okay. So let us talk about this. Okay. So what is the goal of today? We have several goals. Okay. For the equilibrium, maybe I close the door because I don't think other people want to listen to my talk. But so for the goal of today, we actually thinking about an equilibrium. Okay, looking at the market, and because in the topic 1 and topic 2, topic 1 talking about consumer, right? We derive demand function, and we have topic 2 with firm. We talk about the supply function, right? And then we understand how they comes about. And in the last class, we roughly explain how we, from each individual consumer to a market of consumers, right? A bunch of consumers. And one very important thing you would notice, which usually you omit, is this point, the distribution of incomes, right? Because of the fact that you look at the whole market, right? And you look at, usually you go aggregate, right? GDP as a measure of the market, right? Or the aggregate income, right? And the problem would be usually we omit is how the distribution within the market, because consumer heterogeneity is important. Why is it important? Most of you are doing regression, and then that would be important because regression you would just look at the income, but the things, the variance, the spread, that will be also important. If you omit that in your regression, then can be an issue, especially when you talk about a firm that facing a very diverse market, right? You look at market of different countries will be different. Also, one way to do it is just like you would consider demand for each market with segmented, or they're interrelated in somehow, right? Say market for Hong Kong and market for Shenzhen, and then there was relationship between them, right? Probably these days, you know, right? People in Hong Kong go to Shenzhen to consume, right? And when Hong Kong try to promote the night market, right? The Shenzhen government also provide a cash voucher as well, right? So that's interrelated as well. But you will see the distribution of income is important, right? And probably you know, right? These days in Hong Kong, right? You see the GDP doesn't go down that much, but one of the reasons why people want to go to Shenzhen is because of the distribution of income, right? The rich people get richer, the poor people get poorer, and then in that case they have to they don't have not much money, but they have more time, right? So they can spend time to travel across the border to spend, right? So that's one of there's some substitution, right? So you know the MRS, right? So that's the idea, right? Because of I'm not saying that Shenzhen good is inferior, but I mean it's a normal good, right? So anyway, so the firm in our case is price taking. There's no problem, okay? And I guess the assumption for this is very minimal to understand the market dynamics. Although understanding the mechanics within a firm will be the very big thing, right? For those who study corporate finance or organizational economics, that would be a big thing. But to understand the price and quantity or the outcome of the market, that is something that we do not need to worry about the firm within itself is a black box, right? This can be summarized by the profit function, right? So everything we learn from the topic 2, the cost function, the technology, all those things are subsumed in the profit function. So remember, the profit function is an optimal object. Okay? It's an object that takes into account of everything that optimization appear in the firm. Okay, and there's a market supply function. That's not a problem. Okay, so we just remember that we learned from our undergraduate principal class, right? We have the demand and supply idea, right? At the end, we learn it actually holds for many situations. Sorry, this pen is not working. Anyway, so it's just like this guy, right? And at the end, you have a demand and supply, right? So this is what you learn from all principal class, and it usually holds for most market economy, right? Where you notice the only thing matter is the price, right? The adjustment thing is when there's a price is not equal to equilibrium, the market will adjust, right? So do note that why this is an equilibrium. Important part is the price mechanism, right? The price is the key tool to adjust. But actually, when you look at the macro, right, they will tell you, most of you will not take macro anyway, but if you look at the macro, one thing that actually would tell you that prices are sticky, right, at least in the short run, right? Look at your stipend or wages. So I don't know how many people got special stipend. That stipend I got when I switched 10 years ago, same as what you got. So wage is, I think, a bit little sticky, either upward or downward, right? When the economy is bad, wage also very sticky. When the economy is good, wage is a little bit sticky as well, right? So it's like it's not adjust to the market, right? Because you learn, we have just said, right, your wage should be equal to the value of marginal product, right? But the fact is not adjust these days, right? You look at what happened in the US for the union labor, right? The price of the worker is not adjusted accordingly, right? And these are the problem. That's why you have unemployment. All those issues is because price cannot adjust freely, and that's one of the reason why price mechanism doesn't solve all the problems. It solves many problems, especially when people are price taker, right? But when you have problem of people are not price taker, right? Then they behave strategically. That will be in the realm of game theory. We'll talk about that. And here we also assume there's no information asymmetry. Everyone knows the price immediately, right? There's no someone know more than the others, right? Price is not information is not concerned. That's we will talk about in the next topic, uncertainty, right? That's what the finance is about, right? For those who is in finance, right? You know, uncertainty, the risk, this kind of thing would change. How does it change? We'll talk about next one, how people make decisions. And because of different people look at the future very differently. And this is from psychology of behavior, those who do marketing or finance will know, right? And that will also have effect on these problems. And also there's some externality or moral hazard, but we will talk about in the future class. But at least you know, if everything is very ideal, every participant is very small, then this would be a good approximation, right? And you can imagine that the online market like Tmall, Taobao, those kind of things, the competition is much more or less like this. Okay, you would understand this is when you have a very large market, right? So that's why in a lot of modeling, you will see, no matter CONOP or Trans-Deco later, you will see if number of firms get a lot large, very large, that even though their interaction, you will get back this equilibrium. Very often we get this back. So unless you consider a market that populated by very few buyer or seller and they're very powerful, right? Otherwise, this would work, right? So that is actually go back to say the 5-Porter analysis or SWOT analysis, those kind of idea. When you have a competitive market, then this is a good good approximation. And then we talk about how to do this model. In the short run, right, number of firm is exogenous, so you can solve this equilibrium, right? And you will see some firm with profit. And when you try to endogenize number of firm, which you have to add one condition, what usually we do is we assume zero profit, okay? And here we have the equal to zero, right? But in general, you can make it more general to say the entry cost K, okay? And if you want to avoid integer problem, you want to be greater than or equal to, right? Because if you have an integer issue here, K would be a number, it's a cost of entry, right? If you consider entry barrier, okay? And in this model, everything is nice, but when you have consider planner, then planner may also change things, right? By changing K, right? K may be the cost of license of doing things, right? When you consider what firm do have some externality, right? When firm do have some pollution, right? And then you can control K here and there, but that would be some of the thing that you may consider. Even though this is a very simple model, actually can do a lot of stuff, right? Because if you try to look at papers in management science or other business related journal, then actually using this type of model already sufficient for most purpose. Of course, you add, as I said, you add a lot of stuff there, right? I mean, say production has some externality, you have government to regulate, or you have more stuff, then even this model is very simple, can go very far, okay? So don't worry about model is simple, because simple model, you can add a lot of stuff. Complicated model is very hard to build. It's very hard to add stuff already because it's so complicated. So this is something that I mean, you still see people using it, okay? Although it's very general, also very simple, but it's very useful, okay? And when we have zero profit by definition, right? And then that would be the result, okay? And last time we covered the monopoly as well, right? Because the last thing, monopoly is the easiest departure from the perfect competition, okay? And in this model, we still assume firms are maximizing profit. And I have hinted in the previous few classes, right? One way, if you want to be a reduced form or lazy way to model competition, is to assume the firm actually maximizing not the profit, but profit and some part of consumer surplus. Because by making some part of consumer surplus, they will make sure that he or she is competitive in the market, and that is some way to make your life easier, right? For those who do optimization, probably they go to the econ class, but anyway, if they do it, then they will be this is the one of the way to handle, right? Because you maximize profit and some of the surplus that will fight against competition. But this is a way to do it without modeling the competition, right? I mean, no matter what, we want constant monopoly. One of the reasons why we think is because of the firm is we don't want to focus on the firm. We just don't want to talk about external market, okay? And that's not very important when the external environment is not. It's like short run is a good, right? If it's short run, then focusing on the firm may be okay. But long run, then the dynamics of competition will be an issue. Right now, you can imagine Apple, they can do whatever they want, still keep the market. But after some time, then if they keep doing a substandard quality, right, like iPhone 15, people all complain. But if you keep doing that, then probably they will lose the market. But until now, there's still the monopoly. The only thing it changed in monopoly is they face the whole market. So he set the price, okay, you're not price taker. So there's a little bit more different from that. Okay, it's not just simply make the price and marginal cost equalize, right? So you will see the problem is like this, right? The only thing different from the chapter before is this guy. P is a function of Q, right? Before we have P is exogenous, right? But now if you sell one more unit, your price would go down, right? And that would reflect it in your FOC, right? First order condition, right? And actually this one, right? If you still remember, the only thing that changed from monopoly and perfect competition is this guy, right? And you do remember how to interpret this guy. I hope you still remember. So let me do it again, okay? The right-hand side obviously is marginal cost, right? When you produce one more unit, how much additional cost to you, okay? It's not about fixed cost, it's marginal cost. Do note that, right? Because now the firm is into the market, right? We consider the firm, right? The fixed cost is not into consideration, right? Just consider that, okay? And of course, this FOC is assuming we have interior solution, right? Otherwise, FOC doesn't work, right? We have conductor. So we are already assumed the firm is in the market, so that's the FOC is sufficient to characterize for that marginal cost. And this marginal revenue, right? When you produce one more unit, right? And you can sell at the price of current price PQ, assuming the quantity of existing what you have produced can be sold as well, right? Assuming you can sell the same, right? This is what you can sell. But indeed, you cannot sell the same price because downward sloping demand, right? So that's why for all existing unit, you sell a much lower price, reflected by the first derivative. Is that okay? So that is the idea, right? This is the first guy is extra profit you get from new unit, and this is the reduction of revenue from the existing unit. Okay, so that is the very simple idea, right? Because you sell more than you just new unit. This is new unit effect. This is an existing unit, right? So this is another way to write it. It's often written in this way. Is kind of telling you how the monopoly ways operate, right? It's operate in the region, right, of elastic region. Probably I didn't update the slide in the blackboard. I only updated in my computer, but anyway. So that is only to derive. And the next thing is this rule is called the inverse elasticity rule, and that is looking at how monopolists actually doing, and you will see the left-hand side is a relative markup. The right-hand side is inverse elasticity rule, inverse elasticity. So that's why this rule is called inverse elasticity rule. Okay, so that means what? If you consider regulation of monopoly, which is the thing that we often do. I don't know in mainland China, but at least in Hong Kong, we know all the power companies are regulated. And one of the way regulated is the profit control, right? This guy, right? I think in Hong Kong, they control it at 30 to 15%, I think 30%. So the maximum profit that the electricity company can make is 30%, right? So this is somewhat related to this idea, and how they can regulate, right? And sometimes regulation look at checking the marginal cost, right? Or checking this elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand is sometimes easy to do, right? Easier than going to the firm and ask the guy, what is the marginal cost? I mean, this is very difficult to ask the guy marginal cost, right? I mean, they will not tell you my cost is what, they will just inflate it, right? So that's why if you think they are optimizing, right? Look at the elasticity, then you can back out actually how much profit they're making. And this is one way to do it, right? You can see, look at how the demand side, which is the elasticity, and connect to the firm side, right? So you can, that is the one way you can handle the problem, right? Because there are often you're missing. And as we said, right, monopoly is a good approximation, right? When the interaction is not super important, right? And some firm would have some market power, which we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about monopolistic competition. that is, you will see somewhat similar formula arrive here. So that's why often the time you see people focus on this, because monopoly is if you try to build a model, you would usually have a section of monopoly and a section of duopoly, and usually that's done, right? Because monopoly understands how the environment works, and duopoly looks at how firm interact, and that will be, I mean, of course, it's good to generalize more, but sometimes that's the end, because extension to more can be difficult. And those who know math, right, you know, two-dimensional thing and three-dimensional thing can be very different, right? Three-dimensional and four-dimensional can be very similar, but jump from two-dimensional to three is very difficult. So that's the reason. Same in the model. Usually when you have one firm and two firms, it's very different enough. And then you don't really need to go further. Of course, when you do simulation, maybe you want to do it, but to understand as a model, I mean, two firm competing is sufficient for most purpose. But of course, you still think about maybe three firms, there's some interaction further, but I mean, there's a beginning of understanding a theory that will be sufficient. Okay. So now we try to consider the competition model, and we'll consider probably the very first one, which is called Carnot model. Probably if you learn undergrad, that you will learn before. And this will be a idea that behind a lot of competition. I would say at least 5 to 6 papers I've written is based on this model. Okay? This is very simple, and but this is very useful. Okay, I would say this capture. If you want to ask me what would be the model that I use or what would be useful, this will be the one. The next one is hotel, and these two are the most useful model, especially for business school students. The model is based on competition quantity, okay, and it's not the price. Okay, they're not competing on price and quantity. And how to understand this is you consider the competition is on a longer horizon, okay, and they're competing actually on how efficient they produce stuff, right? And it's not price. Price is later you see Bertrand. It's more like short run competition. You can see this is more like quantity idea, okay, and it's kind of one way that fit pretty well in a lot of situations. And in particular, I mean, here we will use so framework when homogeneous. Actually, we can, when heterogeneous, we can still use it. But the idea is, what I put in this one is, when the product are supposed enough heterogeneity, I think you'll be easy to use monopoly model, right? If the goods are very different, I mean, basically everyone will have their own half of the market, right? So, and here have little price setting power, and that's why sometimes it's better, because that's why it's related, right? It's homogeneous, that's why it has little price power. A crude oil market or raw food is a good example. Okay, and in our slides, we'll focus on linear demand, constant cost, and zero fixed cost. Okay, although you'd think this is very trivial, and I will tell you that you can look at my CV. There's several papers written based on this simple model, and you can look at management science as well. There's or other business journal as well. I mean, this assumption is often used, and they often use it to derive a lot of model. Okay, of course, there's a lot of complication goes in there, here and there, but this is the building block. Okay, you would add something, and this is the basic one. So I would just go slow, because I think this is the one I use, and I think it's useful for you. I mean, at the minimum thing, I hope you can get this out of this class. Okay, and this is a Nash equilibrium model, but we will not call Nash equilibrium. We just define the equilibrium, and we'll talk about the foundation for that when we talk about game theory. So we start with inverse linear inverse demand. Okay, the price equal to A is a constant, B is a constant, and sum of the product. Okay, and here I can do this is because they're homogeneous, right? And if they're not homogeneous, then you would have a, say, B1, Q1, B2, Q2, right? Each one is a little bit different, right? But I just make it easier to make it symmetric. Okay. And here we have a J firm, and as a Carnot, we will assume, at least in the short run, J is an exogenous number. Okay, we talk about relax that to endogenize it. Okay, and there's a constant cost and constant marginal cost and constant. There's no fixed cost. That means that cost is production is a proportional to how much you produce. C is a constant. Okay, and if we consider Q is a vector of quantity, so Q1 will be firm 1 production and Qj will be Qj production, then profit function for firm J comes from this guy. Okay? Okay? So this is the product function. Okay? And this is usually what we assume. Okay? And as you can see from the math, right, the pi j is a contracted function of qj. So this is a contracted function, you always have a solution, right? So that's not a problem. So this you just need to check the FOC if you want to maximize this guy. Okay. So now we don't talk about game theory yet. So let's consider what we define what's equilibrium, like what we define what the equilibrium is in the perfect competition, right? Perfect competition, we define equilibrium is the price such that the demand goes to supply. Okay? Now we define, okay, the equilibrium is such that given a vector production, okay, every firm is choosing the maximizing quantity. Okay? So suppose this is the idea. Suppose I produce 10 units, you produce 20 units. Okay? Given you produce 20 units, 10 units is my optimal choice. I don't want to change. And for you, you're producing 20, given I'm producing 10, 20 is optimal choice. So no one is going to deviate. Okay? We are not talking about adjustment. Okay? There's no price adjustment. It's just saying that if I'm doing this, you are doing that, no one wants to change. Okay, it's much more simple requirement, right? Because same as the demand supply, right? We just define demand supply. We don't talk about not this equilibrium, what happened. No, we don't talk about that. I mean, of course, you know, price actually adjusts, and the Carnot equilibrium or Carnot-Nash equilibrium actually don't tell you what happened if some firm make a mistake. No, we don't talk about that. But I mean, if you learn further, I mean, probably some of you might, then actually this Carnot-Nash equilibrium has a very strong stability property, which means that if you deviate from there, some firm actually go back. Okay, that is why Carnot is so robust. Even you may specify or people misunderstand there's some problem or there's some change in environment, go back. All right. So this is the model. Okay, is that clear? What is Carnot-Nash equilibrium? Okay, and that is way before the John Nash invent the Nash equilibrium. Just Carnot is I think it's 1895, so it's like 30 to 50 years before Nash. So that's why people would call this Carnot-Nash, because Carnot is before that. But Nash idea generalized this. Okay, so this is how people think how firm decide the quantity. Okay, and which we prove in the coming slides is the equilibrium look like this. Okay, the quantity and the price look like this. Okay, and as I said, right, the important part is, of course, the derivation is important, but I think it's good to look at what the interpretation of this before we go to the math, because I think you guys will know the math is not easy. But of course, you don't go step by step for this one, because as I said, I rely on this to make my living. Okay, and I hope some of you may actually rely on that as well. But let's go one by one to see what do you see here. Okay, although it's linear model, actually most of things actually when you change to more general, actually most of them actually holds. Okay, so let's look at the quantity. Okay, you will notice it's a fraction, and first look at the case where the denominator j. Okay, j is number of firm, right? And to understand this, it's easier to understand compressed statics. Okay? What happens if J go to infinity? Right? J very large. And you learn math, right? When denominator goes to infinity, then it becomes 0. Right? Holding a different constant. So when the firm, bless you. So when the firm, a lot of firm goes on, then each firm becomes very small. Then each firm is like a price taker. Right? Quantity become very little. Right? And if you look at the price, right? When J go to infinity, right? What we will see? P is what? Yeah, C. So what do you mean is price equal to marginal cost, right? So exactly what you see, what you expect in the perfect competition, right? So that is the very good thing about Conant, right? When a lot of firms go back to what we know and what is supposed to be, right? Because when a lot of firms, the interaction is no longer important, right? Because look at the demand function, right? It's adding every firm, right? So adding more firm, then actually more firm is like each firm will be very small in the market, right? So it just doesn't really matter how the other produce, right? Because you are one small fish in a big pond. Doesn't really matter. You're not going to change it because remember what it changed the model. Just go back to you don't understand this, you don't understand why this case. Go back to the question. In this particular model, I just mentioned, where am I? Hey, it's up here. Okay. The only thing that matter here is this guy, right? In a perfect competition, this guy is constant. Right? But now when you have market, this is going to be related, right? Because how much will depend on others. But if there's a lot of others, your contribution will be very small, right? So that's the reason why you have this outcome, right? So we understand how J changes, right? And when number of firm goes up, right? This goes down and price goes down as well, right? Decreasing in J. And price is increasing in C as well. And you can see how the price is being determined is by A, right? What's A? Go back to the A. Go back to it. A is what? Maybe this line or this line, right? It's inverse relative demand, right? A is the strength of the market, right? It's how strong people are willing to pay for the good, right? We're willing to pay. If you look at this, it's like even when the quantity is very low, right? It's 0. This is what people would buy, right? It's like the first unit, how people want to pay, right? From the market, right? Just like how strong the market, right? So like the price actually affected by the demand, right? Actually reflecting the demand, right? And you can see the price is interaction between demand and supply, right? A and C. Okay? So it's very natural. We can see here. And do note that the B doesn't appear in P. Right, in this linear model. P is not unrelated. Well, surprisingly, right? It isn't related to how people are sensitive to the, right? Because P is the slope of the demand, right? So it doesn't relate to the slope of demand. This is an artifact of linear. If you don't have this, then you would, in general, it's affected, right? You can consider it a contracted demand, then you have something more. But in this model, you don't. So linear have some simplification. But here you have quantity, right? And quantity is A minus C. So what is A minus C here? So A is people willing to pay, right? C is what? Marginal cost. The difference is the maximum plausible surplus if trade happens, right? This is A is the maximum they want to pay. C is the minimum you need to cost, right? This may be a social surplus or social benefit of the trade would happen, right? And Q proportional to that, and divided by how many firm you share, right? And B will be the slope, right? Because when you produce more, then the price goes down, right? So that is coming from competition, right? Is that okay? Is that clear? Right? Because imagine when you are facing the whole firm, facing the whole industry, whole market, B will be infinite. B will be zero. Right? Look at the demand curve for you. Right? If B is zero, right? This is the constant price we're facing. Right? Because that would be what you do when the B is zero is actually what you are actually working on when you have a competitive market. Right? And you will see, right? When B goes to zero, this will be infinite. You can produce as much as you want, right? So it's just like interaction effect here, right? B is much more like the strategic effect of this goes on. Okay. So let's derive this. I go a little bit slow because this is important. As I said, I make living for this, so good to teach you how I make living. So the Connex equilibrium, as I said, you don't need to worry about the second order condition, right? And you need to consider first order because it's concave, right? Because it's contracting. So do note that in the simple model, you don't need to worry about SOC, but very important, very often you change some part of the model, right? And you need to make sure that the SOC satisfy. That is very important, right? I mean, very often you overlook because if you solve this model and put it in a big model, that's fine. Okay, because you solve multi-stage model, this part of your model, that's okay. But you try to modify the model, make sure that you check the SOC because often you overlook. And I do have a mistake sometimes I overlook that the figure of the equity turn out to be a minimum, that would be make easier than as a corner solution. So make sure that you check. And it's not difficult to see if you do it for the every firm, right? Because the equilibrium is like this. So the equilibrium must satisfy FOC for every single firm, right? I don't see the problem of solving this one, right? This is because this is a linear system, n equation, n unknown, right? And usually the simplest way, people would do is to summing all the FOC, right? Because linear, so this become, summing all this become JA and B big Q and BJQ, right? And then you can solve the big Q, okay? So this is the standard technique you would do for linear demand. And probably I will make for the assignment if you consider the case where firm have different marginal costs, what you will see. Probably this will be the assignment for you. I will do that because, as I said, this is a very important thing that I should ask you to do it, right? And that's how you can solve this one. Because you solve for the market quantity, right? Then you know the market price and you can basically solve this out. Okay? Because this is the answer. Is that okay? I don't think I need to go step by step for this one, but if you really need me, you can go for the break and ask me again, because I think that would be more economical use of time. And I already mentioned when this go to infinity, this will be zero or not. Okay? And very often when you talk about study the model or you want to create some way of people competing, it is often you would say when number of firms go to infinity, what you will get. Okay? If you try to assume firm behave in a certain way, that is something you should do. Okay? Okay. It's 1 minute. Maybe I should have an earlier break because sometimes I still, but we can resume earlier. So that's a break of 15 minutes. In the meantime, I mean, if you haven't filled in, you feel and join, and then we will do it. We will check out in the next break and see if you what are the time that is best to make up. Okay, let's have a break of 15 minutes. Let's resume at 10:30. If you have done it, please do it. We will check it out in the next break. 我今天其实你的里面的，哎，为什么你都买？ Okay, let's resume. I hope this class is okay speed because some of you may have taken, then would find it easier. Some of you have no prior knowledge, will find it a little bit hard. But I hope everything will be in a good balance because at least even though you're very good at math, but at least I tell you what are the experience and what are the important part that hopefully is useful at least. I mean, as I emphasize, in case you want to get more firmer foundation, you can go to the econ one to get more details. But here our class focus on application and how we actually apply things. So we are faster in that sense, but I hope it's sufficient because that's what I know and what I use. Okay, now the next is about the Bertrand competition instead of quantity, talk about price. And one of the reasons that you might thinking Bertrand is like firms are competing price, right? So it's a kind of price war, right? It's like hyper competitive, right? Of course, that model that actually combine price and quantity competition, and the problem is, do they actually offer more insights, right? And probably the question would be which model you should use, and that would be the idea. And there is no hard and fast rule, right? Which one is better? But if you allow a more elaborated demand function, okay, then actually, no matter you do Bertrand and Conlott, will give you very similar result. Okay, of course, there are papers in the 80s and 90s that tell you one guy do a model in Bertrand and get some result, and some guy do a Conlott and get the result. They can both publish, but those days are gone. So usually when you try to do a Conlott, and referee will ask you to see what Bertrand would tell you, and you would be asked to explain what are the difference. And now this is now standard, right? It's not set in the 80 and 90 where you can do one and that's it. Unless people have been doing Conlott in that kind of model, then you don't need to defend. Like what I do, right? I doing a few where Conlott is standard, so I just keep doing Conlott. And of course, sometimes Bertrand is still used. But let's go to what Bertrand is, right? Bertrand is price competition, right? And so we can use the both on P for price vector, okay? And this is, we assume the very basic case of Bertrand will be the goods are perfect substitutes, okay? And if you try to relax that assumption, then actually Bertrand will have even more bias. But why we have that? Because this gives you a very sharp conclusion later you will see, okay? And utility maximization, if you can see this, is easily see will be a Conlott solution. Actually, a solution that means that the cheapest product will get consumed, right? The even slightly more expensive will not get consumed, right? Of course, this assumes a lot of stuff, right? You can freely exchange one or the other, and people know the price immediately, and so on and so forth, right? But suppose price is well known, right? And actually for finance people, that's what you expect, right? The price is Bertrand price, right? That's why even though in the US stock market, right, there's many places, I mean, for those finance, right, you know, right, there's many exchange, but the price will be very similar because of the homogeneous product, right? And probably that one thing is well studied in finance is called the AH premium, right? And you can see the X share and A share is relative same, but the same thing, right? But why there's some price difference, right? Because of it's not perfect substitute, right? For people in outside China, AH is same, or actually X is better, right? But A is actually they can only buy B, right? But in China, people only can buy A, right? So there is some difference, and that's why the price is different, and there's some slight difference, and then the lot of papers still these days try to explain why they're different until today, right? But that's the thing, right? And now, if you have market demand, we don't need to put it there. It's just a downward sloping is sufficient, because the Bertrand you will see, no matter how you specify the demand, thing goes the same. Okay, and demand for firm J, because of the way we have is, if you are not the lowest price, which correspond to the last case, what happened is you don't have anyone to come to you, right? If your price is higher than the minimum of any other, right? So it means the last one means you're not the lowest. This is lowest besides you. Your price is higher than the lowest besides you. You're the lowest. You're the lowest, you get 0. Okay? And the first one is you are lower than the lowest, right, among your competitor. So you get the whole market. So that's what it means. And no, I think the first and the last will be there's absolutely no problem. Okay, this is very simple. The only thing that complicates, and also there are a lot of technicalities in the literature as well, is what happened when you have this guy. When equal, how do you try to break the tie? And tie breaking often, along in this model and in many other models, is when the price are the same, how you allocate, right? If you decide the market, that's easy. But when you hop out market business, how are you going to divide the market among firms when they set the same price? And in this model, we assume they equally divided, okay? And because we subsume all other heterogeneity among firms, right? But if one firm is like a dominant firm, then a dominant firm will take the whole market. Actually, there's some model they do it, right? There's a dominant firm, the price is the same, all the consumer go to that dominant firm, right? That actually happened in the practice as well, right? But anyway, that would be the model, okay? And whether like it or not, this is standard, okay? And even the first line, okay, is a bit, people would think whether this is appropriate assumption, right? Because, I mean, for monopoly, there should be no problem. That guy is able to serve the whole market. But this means the production capacity of the firm J actually can serve the whole market, which is usually a problematic assumption, right? This is okay when you talk about long enough run, but short run need not to be the case, right? Suppose you are a restaurant, you set the lowest price. Can you serve the whole market? Not necessary, because you have constraint on the space, constraint on how fast you can produce. That's a problem. For finance, it's okay, that's fine, right? Because the thing is just electronic. Just click and you can buy and sell relatively no problem. But you talk about real world, that's an issue. We're talking about Big Four accounting, right? How many firms you can serve is constrained by how many staff you have and managerial capacity, those so on and so forth, right? Here we have we don't have this constraint, right? Anyway, so the firm will have the whole market and split if there's a tie. That's what it is, right? And if you hire them, then you get zero demand, okay? And as I said, you have constant costs and fixed costs, right? But actually, this is a problematic, as I said, right? Because in the real world, there's some constraint on how much you can produce and capacity constraint, which we don't discuss, but that will be very important, okay? We omit. But anyway, if you assume the constant cost, this is the profit function, okay? And usually we start from here, right? That's a standard way of Bertrand in your mind. Most people, when they say Bertrand, is actually this profit function, okay? I mean, of course, they would consider this is that. That's it. They don't consider further, okay? And of course, you would know we have made a lot of something to get to here, okay? At least we assume there are no capacity constraint. They are homogeneous, right? There's no fixed cost and there's no a lot of stuff, okay? And because of this, okay, and we can do a Nash equilibrium as well, but this one we call Bertrand, okay? And this is the price, same as before, right? Carnot is the case where if you produce this much, I don't want to deviate given that, right? And this is saying that if you set the price to be $10, I set the price to the $12, given you set 10, I keep my 12. And I keep my 12, you don't want to change from 10, okay? This is, I give a list of price, no one want to change, okay? And later we argue, right, the result is here already, is the price actually end up is same as marginal cost, right? This is the result. P is equal to MC, regardless of J, okay? Look at the compare statics here. J has, I should put it, maybe I should put a symbol, right? Because I don't know whether you can read easily, but actually it's just P star equal to C. Maybe I'll write that here because, right, that's the result, right? P star equal to C, right? So, but I think it's here already, right? It's the Bertrand equilibrium. And do remember there's a lot of assumption to get this one, okay? And you do note that this J has no impact on this. Okay, and the demand function has no impact on this as well, right? I mean, on the price. Of course, you probably ask what's the quantity, right? What is the quantity in this market, right? Just come from the demand function, right? The QD, right? And the demand function has no impact on price. Very surprising, right? You expect that would have to be high, but nothing, right? Remember, the Carnot A actually affect the price, right? The willingness to pay has to affect, right? It means that regardless of how the good is liked by any people, same, right? So that would be the idea, right? Is that okay? Is that okay? Okay. So I guess this is very simple. And probably you would, as you might like me, you would think in the real world firm compete in price, right? And if every firm is going to follow Bertrand, then what are we doing, right? Why need to study firms dynamics? Why study firm competition, right? And actually, if you think in this way, you're not alone, because that is what in the literature called the Bertrand paradox. Okay? Bertrand paradox tells us, since firm compete in price, then why we don't see price equal to marginal cost, right? And that's the end of the story. Why we need to consider Carnot and that thing. I mean, in those days, actually, Carnot and Bertrand fight each other for a very long time. And why there's a problem? And then if you look at the textbook by Thoreau, they have an industrial organization, the textbook, Theory of Industrial Organization, and he spent whole chapter to explain why Bertrand paradox there, right? That's the case. One reason I mentioned is what we call the capacity constraint, right? No firm is able to provide the whole market, right? And in that case, they don't compete. The market is not super competitive, right? The price don't go to that, right? There's some limit that you can compete, right? And when there's some limit you can compete, right? The capacity matter. Actually go back to Carnot, right? Because how much you can fight the whole market is how much you can produce, right? At the end, that's why I said Carnot would be the thing that would be more relevant, right? If you're talking about the market in the medium and long run, short run may be compete in price, right? I mean, there's some slight change in price such that they would compete, but in the long run is how much you can produce efficiently matter, right? And that paper, they try to explain or give a foundation to Carnot. Okay, they consider two-stage game, like firm compete invest in capacity, and then second stage they would compete in price, and firm cannot produce more than what they have, right? The capacity. Then you end up in Carnot. Okay, so Carnot you can say is use a Thoreau's, I think Thoreau's word, it's a reduced form way of modeling price competition, right? You just don't model capacity. You don't model those capacity constraints, don't model competition, but just consider it in a one model, then it works very well and empirically, so that's why it's a good one, right? But this Bertrand can also, to explain why there's a price war, right? When firms actually behave very competitively, right? And you can see why a lot of things are free, right? Google is free, ChatGPT are free, actually a lot of things are free, right? And one reason is like Bertrand, right? Especially, I don't know here, but at least in the days in a few years ago, probably you know there's a bike sharing. I don't know, the bike sharing, right? I don't know still in China or not, but at least when I was in Singapore, actually the bike is almost like free. Almost like you charge very minimal. And I always wonder, how can they sustain, right? Because it's like the price is so low. Don't even able to, make up the wear and tear, right? And the reason why the price is so low, right? Because they compete in short run. And in short run, they have invested so many bicycles already, right? So the profit, the fixed cost, not in that, right? Not into the price, not in the profit, right? They take a short run, right? So they already invest so many bytes. So the price can go to so low, right? Low to the sense is like almost like 3, right? So you do have some bytes here, right? Because marginal cost is 0, right? The byte is already there, right? So that's why it's almost 3 for those cases. So you can explain a lot of things, right? And it depends on how well you use it, and a lot of time Bertrand is also used in a lot of model because it's so simple, right? Because every time you go to marginal price equal to marginal cost, right? And it's good when you have a very complicated model, right? You have supply chain, you have many different systems, and you think some system is perfect competitive, right? Even though then it's easier to, you can say, even though only few firm, I still want to have a perfect comparison result, then I just invoke Bertrand. That's how you use Bertrand, right? It's not you have a whole model, the main result is Bertrand, then probably referee will complain, right? But you have a big model, some part of it is a Bertrand, it's fine, okay? And you have many different parts, right? The firm may face different area, and one small part of the market is Bertrand, it's fine. And other part is Connaught or other competition. That is the way to go, right? Don't use the models as Bertrand, then you're done, right? Then you don't have anything to do. Then probably referee will complain. I mean, of course, if the model actually fit well, then it's fine, but usually not the case, right? And usually when you would just relax this constant cost, and you also would relax this assumption, right? Once you relax this assumption, of course, you have to derive the equilibrium again, but in that case, your model will be very applicable to different scenario. Is that okay? Is that okay? I hope I give you idea when you use it. And last one, this is usually some of the case that are less common in business journal, but very common in econ journal. Look at the trade literature, IO literature, maybe marketing also sometimes is common as well. I do see this financial also appear as well. It's called the monopolistic competition. So you can say this is kind of Connaught plus Bertrand, more or less. Okay, you say somewhere in the middle, right? But that means it's a little bit more complicated. Okay, and each firm faces its own downward sloping demand. Okay, and there's some heterogeneous product. Okay, so they face its downward sloping demand. So each firm would have its own demand. Okay, and its demand depends on price. Okay, it's not its own price; it's a vector price. So that's a key part here. Okay, that's distinguish what the monopoly and this one. That's why it's called monopolistic competition. It's the P that relay different market, not the quantity but the price. Okay, you can consider the case actually quantity with the market, but I think this is more natural. Price connect each market. Okay, and if you know math, right? If the system is invertible, then actually there's no difference, right? You consider price and quantity the same. But anyway, here we focus on more generic case. Actually, firm decide price rather than quantity. Okay, it's like Connaught style. Okay, and total cost function is only depend on your production. Okay, here also we have some simplification here as well. Is the cost only depend on your own production, right? But you can imagine a case where costs are related, right? If I produce more, the raw material goes up, you affect other firm. Okay, so that would be the case. Okay, and this is the model. Okay, and as you can see, the main difference here is this depend on other people price. Okay, because monopoly only depend on PJ, right? So this is the thing. Okay, that is the main difference coming different from monopoly, and the price is how firms are strategically related, right? If my product is the demand is independent of other people's price, then it's monopoly, right? And that explains why or when you can use monopoly, right? Is when the substitution effect or the complement effect between the product among firms is weak, then monopoly is a good approximation, right? And how can you justify it's a good approximation? Is depend on situation, right? I mean, if you can convince the referee this is the right way, then just use monopoly, right? Why you have to worry about that? But that's the case. Is that okay? Is that okay? I hope I convinced you this is the model, okay? And as you would see, the result will not be too much different, right? And you can solve for the FOC, just differentiate that, right? There's nothing new there. And you can use the inverse function theorem that gives you back the more general case, is the marginal cost equal to marginal revenue. Okay? Because this is produce one more unit, this gives you marginal cost, right? This is the same thing, right? You sell one more unit, this is the price, and this is existing effect. This is the new unit effect. This is existing unit effect, right? For this one more unit. But of course, you can look at the price as well, right? If you increase one more, you increase the price, right? And you would reduce your demand. Maybe I just do the price lower, right? I lower my price, I sell one more unit, right? And one more unit will cost me that much, right? If I increase my price, I reduce my price, right? I reduce my price, this is the loss of revenue for existing product, right? But if I lower my price, I sell more, right? This is the extra revenue I get. Is that clear how you can interpret? I mean, you should know how to interpret the two FOC, right? The below one is no problem. The above one, maybe I do it again, okay? Now I consider my good, I lower my price. I lower my price, by definition, I face downstream demand, my demand will go up, okay? Then what does that mean? I lower my price, I would increase my demand, I produce more, right? This increase my cost, okay? That is the benefit of lowering my price, okay? And what's the benefit of that? Okay, there's a cost associated with that, right? Because if I lower my price, my existing unit will sell this less, right? What about, do I sell more unit? Yes, right? Because I lower my price, I sell more unit, I sell this price. Is that clear? So same as here, right? Existing unit effect and new unit effect. Is that clear? So I hope you understand how to interpret this, because this is very important, right? Because if I give you functional form, that would be very simple, but that would be the case. And this free method, this free model, I think is the most simplest one. Of course, without M.Phil talk about hoteling model, that would be that would be a very useful one as well. So basically, look at my career, most of the way I do is Connor, Bertrand, and hoteling, and that summarize most of the thing. In terms of firm competition, right? You don't need to go further. Of course, if you want to model complicated thing, you need further, but unless you have some reason, why you need to, right? Because they already capture most of the things have been used so many times, and as I said, unless you are theorist, I don't think you want to take too much innovation. Just use the classical model and amend it to adjust to model the thing you want. Don't make innovation. Of course, you are very tempted to try to see, okay, I have to look at the latest technology applied to my model. No. I would suggest you use the classical model and make innovation on the thing you want to do, rather than innovate on your model. Unless the model we are talking about doesn't fit what you want to do. Otherwise, just do the standard thing. Okay? Is that okay? So this is the short run. The long run will be not surprising. Only thing we add is just like you allow number of firms to be endogenoused. And I said I have here is I impose a condition where there's entry has a zero profit. Okay, zero profit need not be the thing. You can assume there's the the entry means that entry barrier is K. Suppose you need pay K dollar to enter the market, like entry permit or whatever setup things. Okay, and in this case, right, the short run results still hold, but the long run will be say the zero profit, right? So revenue equal to cost, right? So you can solve the J, right? Note that J is endogenous here, okay? In this model, J is part of the solution. Is that okay? I mean, don't worry, because this model, as I said, I use often, and then you'll be given a simple exercise, I mean, in your assignment after, 2 weeks later, I guess, after you finish assignment 1, I give you this one for, you can do it, okay? And some of you actually asked me in the break, how difficult is the exam? You'll be very similar to the assignment, maybe 1 or 2 part, some sub-part that will ask slightly more difficult, right, to distinguish who get A and who get A minus, or otherwise, everyone got 100 marks that no, then I can't judge, but okay, but that would be very similar. Okay, but the way I test is because this is what I try to want you to do it, right? Because otherwise, I can ask very difficult proof, but there's no use for most of you, right? So I just try to make sure that try to align your interests with. Otherwise, you don't want to study, right? If study something is not very useful, then it's not very good, wasting every people's time. Okay, that is Pareto improvement we'll talk about soon. Okay. So I hope it's okay. You understand how firms compete without going to game theory, because this is already there, right? Because you don't really rely on game theory to do most of the stuff. But now we have to talk about general equilibrium, okay? And I will try to be brief here. The reason is the general equilibrium, as the idea is more useful for macro and somewhat useful in finance. And because those people from finance, actually, they will study their own asset pricing theory. And most of you would not doing it, so I don't feel guilty for omitting many details. And actually this, if you look at the best textbook will be look at Max Kohler, Winston Green. They have 6 chapters to go over all the general equilibrium to understand why your option pricing, how do they explain that. But I guess if I cover that, then other students will kill me. But so that's why let's keep it simple. We here just trying to say partial equilibrium actually means we will keep the labor market, the raw material constant. The factor market, you can see, right? We just focus on the firm compete. We don't talk about factor market, right? How the wage is determined, how the rental cost has been determined is not there. So the question of this part is asking, is there equilibrium there, right? Is the market with the excess equilibrium? That is the main concern in this type of model. This model actually become a center of economics in the 60s and 70s because they would worry about whether equilibrium exists in a big scale, right? Because this is actually one of the problems when go back to the ideology war between communism and capitalism, between USSR and US, Western civilization, is the whether actually market economy would work, right, by itself, or you actually need a planner, right? And the existent equilibrium is part of the thing that they would worry. But of course, later you will see this is a very nice model, but you will see that a lot of things that's lacking here, and that's why people no longer study that much. Okay, that caveat actually, my advisor is doing this a lot of time, and my advisor is one of the founders for this, so that's why I'm not back-mouthing this topic, but just saying now is less not quite relevant itself, because just like for people in finance, right, I don't think you care about whether equilibrium exists, right? Just do it. Okay, very practical, right? Exists, just like the math. right? I mean, for those who know the math, right? There's a crisis of mathematics, right? How to have the foundation, come to Russell paradox, and whether the set theory can build up the whole mathematical building. Then there's a lot of issue, but now people, okay, whatever. We just do whatever we need to do, right? And I don't know what you guys would think when you have existential crisis, right? What's the meaning of life, right? Why I'm doing what I should do, right? And you will worry it for some years, and then after that, okay, whatever. I just live and die, right? I don't know what you think, but that's me. I mean, the same as this, right? I mean, for economists, they think about existence. There's something, and once they figure out, okay, it can't be solved. Okay, whatever. Okay, we keep doing what we need to do. Okay, but why we still want to do that? Because we do that because this introduces a very important concept, what we call the cooperative game theory. Okay, usually we talk game theory, which we'll study after next topic. After uncertainty, we'll study game theory for the rest of the semester. Is talking about non-cooperative game theory. Okay, which we'll discuss detail later. Actually, you can see the Condorcet's equilibrium is a non-cooperative game theory. Okay, and what this kind of stream of game theory is talking about how individuals behave. Okay, and you define the equilibrium concept, right? And you derive equilibrium, right? Just we define the equilibrium in a way that no one will deviate. Okay, and you define solution. Okay, and today we talk about cooperative game. It's slightly different. We would consider the equilibrium property by itself. We will try to think what might be the outcome that is desirable. Not talk about individual, talk about indesirable, and talk about stability of this property. Whether people want to get away from it, okay, there's some stabilities, there's some desirable property, and you can say this is a reduced form of game theory. Okay, and there are papers talk about this. Core SEP value, these are often used, especially for information system. SEP value is often used there. Okay, we doing this will just give you idea of this, and then we'll not go in back. But this is a very important topic that often missed in many scenarios. But especially this is I think rather important. I mean, because when people talk about, say, firm and worker, right, and how wages being determined, look at empirical literature, they talk about the division of surplus is based on SEP value, which I don't have time to talk about, but the definition is like the average marginal product, and that is how they determine that, right? Run the regression. And you can imagine in finance or other cases like firms combine their thing and create surplus. And how to divide surplus? I mean, of course, you can build a model, but the simplest way to consider reduced form, look at the core, look at the SEP value, look at those issues here. But of course, that's the idea. Okay. So the main goal of this is to derive two things. Probably you learned already. It's called what we call the first welfare theorem and second welfare theorem. Okay. But what is first welfare theorem? Later you will see it's talking about market is good. Okay. It's technically means the Watson equilibrium is Pareto efficient. Okay, which we will define every term later. And second welfare theorem, we said every Pareto efficient outcome can be implemented by a market equilibrium if you can do some transfer. Okay, or in other words, it's like if you are able, the government is there to move things around, then you can do whatever you want, and there's no loss of the market is good. Okay. But anyway, let's start. Okay. So as I said, the details are not very important. The only thing is you learn the concept, which is transferable knowledge, right? Because to prove existence or other thing is not important at all, because basically involves some fixed point theorem. But otherwise, unless you actually into this business, otherwise the point is no use. But rather than, I want to introduce you the concept that actually used derived from this literature, and that is transferable to your scenario. Okay, so that's the main thing, is understand the concept like Pareto efficiency, core, that will be used for your own purpose. Okay, not about proving the existence or wherever theorem is there, is important, but the skills to derive them is not very important. Okay. So it's very notational heavy. So I'll go slower. Okay. So here we have customer, consumer 1 up to big I. Okay. Here I have often in economics, in some time we would abuse notation, because this is usually a set, but I also define this is also the same thing. But to be exactly the technical, this should be usually I should put sometimes I should put a absolute sign here to denote, or I put a bold font for that. Okay, but it's very technical thing. But usually I do this, right? In case some people who are very theory oriented, they will just pick me up. But I just caveat here. For business journal, this is fine. Okay, and you consumer here, and because now we have I consumer, we have to be very careful with the notation. Okay, we have XKI. K refer to good J, good K of consumer I. So all the time, as in this chapter, the superscript is always refer to the identity of the agent. The lowest, the subscript is referred to the type of good. Okay, and the consumption bundle for consumer I is a N vector. Assuming we have N good, I should put where somewhere with N product. Okay, N products and K good, and each consumers have a preference representable by utility function. So here you can see we already assume there's some continuity, monotonicity to make it work. Okay, and here we don't assume production. Okay, so we just only consider the basic thing, and everything would hold when you hold production. Okay, and the consumer here. Okay, we don't consider time. And if you look at finance people, they talk about time, then there is the interest rate and those things. Okay, but we are not putting here because the saving, this will be consumption and saving, give you the interest rate, but we're not doing that here. Okay, sorry, but we don't have time constraint, but you learned it in your asset pricing model, so I don't feel very bad. It's good to give you foundation as well, right? Just good revision. So here we call about exchange economy. Okay, is only very simple. We just have bunch of people, something fall from the sky, right? Apple from the tree, banana from somewhere, okay? And they trade. Okay, before we trade, but there's an economy. Okay, preference and endowment, very simple. There's no production. Okay, but you can check the textbook. Production doesn't change a lot, so everything would work there. Okay, there's no need to do production, but same thing. And here is a little bit starting crazy. Okay, an allocation. Okay, is a list of consumption bundle. Okay, each one is an n-dimensional vector. Okay, so that's why you will see R, N, L. So it's starting crazy. Okay, is that okay? I get slower because the notation get very heavy. Okay, especially first time wrote it, it's like, oh my God, what's going on? I don't know whether you feel it, but at least when I first studied it, it's like, oh my God, what's it? It's very complicated. Okay. Now, we still start with definition. That is, you can see this is usually the way that theory model would work, because this I have to define things one by one. Unfortunately, we cannot just skip. So we define a feasible allocation, okay? Because not all the things are feasible, right? So you have to be the case that you cannot allocate more than what you have, okay? And that means that for each good, that's good I to good 1 to good n. Sum of endowment for each must be more than you allocate, right? So that's very simple, right? So you just basically go from good 1 up to k, sum of all people's consumption on good k must not be more than this, okay? That's rather simple, right? I think you can definitely no problem. But you look at textbook, okay, what you see is this guy, okay, you bend your head to the wall, okay, that's what the mass scholar Winston Green that will just give you this one, okay. What does that mean? It actually means the same thing because a vector, right? Because this is a bunch of vectors. So when this means this is you see for every dimension. Is that clear? Oh, maybe I just give example. Maybe some of you still bending the head to the wall. So basically, it's asking if x11, right? Suppose n is equal to 2, k equal to 2, right? So then you will be x12, right? This is guy number 1, two consumption, right? And then we have x21 and x22, right? And then the endowment will be E1 and E2, right? And which essentially said is this guy plus this guy must less than or equal to this guy, right? So that is what it means. But my suggestion is when you try to read, say, textbook, when you see this bold font, you just rewrite in this way. Then your mind will be easier, okay? Although it's work, when you know math, this is easier way to see, but when you try to learn it first time, I think this is the way I do it, okay? So I think to read that textbook, they always think you would think difficult is like, I think it's like how to understand the vector notation, okay? But I try not to use vector except the proof, okay? Okay, is that okay? And here the set of, we define f of e is set of feasible allocation. Okay, so this is something especially when you learn the undergrad. That is what the actual box means, right? Because actual box is, let me draw it. I don't know if we still remember actual box, right? Is this, right? And what you have is like x1, 1, right? x1, 2, okay? And start from 0 here. Suppose you're the blue guy, okay, blue guy here, right? And this is the point, right? And this is his consumption, right? And this is whole thing is just like E1, right? And this whole thing is E2, right? This total endowment, and this is the consumption, right? And if you are a red girl here, look at in this dimension, right? And for her to look at this dimension, this is x2, 1, you go this way, right? And you go this way, this is x 2, right? And this is what he consumed, right? So every point in this Ashworth box is allocation, okay? But of course, it's not fully because look at the definition, F is allowed less than or equal to, okay? So not exactly like this, but you can imagine 2 points are here, right? But as long as this is assuming there's no waste of resources, right? But that's fine because we assume monotonicity anyway. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter whether there's some good left unspent is not a big concern. Okay, but in principle that you allow good to be unconsumed. Okay, so you can allocate less than the total endowment, but that's not allowed in actual box. at least not in the simple sense, right? Here you just assume all the things, but this is already up here in your undergraduate learning, right? If you have ever do it, okay? But simply mean this is the box you can allocate to two guys, right? So this is F is actual box. Now, yeah. Let me do this slide, okay, as a break. This is very simple. So because this is something we have learned, so we assume continuous, strong increasing and straight concave, okay? And that means that if consumer price ticker, which we have learned, right? Do note that the only difference here is this price times endowment, right? Before the income, there's a money term there, but now we have to be price times endowment. You need to sell the endowment to get the thing. There's no money in this model, right? There's no I in the model because in the topic one of I, right? Because I is the money that you can buy things, but now we don't have money anymore. Okay, there's exchange economy. There's no money. Okay, and for those who come on finance, then probably you will see how to talk about money is a big thing in this model, right? How money change in this kind of model, how change this thing is very important, right? But anyway, it's not our concern right now. So anyway, that is saying if we make this assumption, it's a unique solution. I think this is something we have said already, and it's continuous P, but I think that I don't think that I need to explain. It's very technical anyway, but that is what I have. Okay. After the break, we will try to show you all the proofs. Okay. So let's have a break. Let's see. Let me end this and see what's the result. Why I cannot see the result? Oh, this is name. So Tuesday is not many people alone. Same. Same. So seems like the best is this one, Wednesday afternoon. I don't know. Let me think a little bit and see if we book the room. Book the room, then we'll make it. In the case you can't attend, then I'll try to make it at the very end of the course. So in that case, then you will not include the things that cover the additional material that would not affect your study. Okay. So I'll try to make it up at the maybe very end of the semester. Okay. 不能分超过有没有东西？不是你，那种是说 A 什么 market 那个那个就是这个是说你的客户的东西分。对啊。这个是一个人，这个是他有马路的话，他在闹的。前面的但是有所以为什么有开始对的话小数数，所以price has just successful， 所以就是一个这层是说我们传那个 price， 但是每一个人都是怎样拿的这个小数，exactly， 说的没关系。这就是有证明，就是他为了做证明exist as a price， they equalize， they make sure that everyone's happy，and so that's why。就是老花是一个那个。还好。但是我是在那个因为没。 Hi. Maybe we can resume. So let's quickly review what we have said because I guess some of you also asked me some question. Okay. So one question I want to clarify for feasible allocation, it simply means what is physically possible. Okay, just asking you whether this allocation would be doable given our resources. Okay, so that's why it's for each possible good, how much you have, how many you have. Okay, on the right hand side, left hand side is how much you actually allocate to people. Okay, what you give people, what you propose to give to people should be subject to the endowment constraint, not more than what you have. And this price probably I should be a little bit more, because it's a vector notation. It actually simply means price of 1 times good 1, say, plus price of 2 plus good 2. Okay. Maybe I should do it this way. Maybe I mean my price is right? It's like this. You just mean price of good 1 for agent I times his good consumption, price of good 2, right? So it's his total spending, okay? Given price, if he try to consume, this is how much he need to pay, and it's less than, suppose he sell what he has in the market, right? Okay, so that suppose it's too good, that's what it means. Okay, so just saying that the right hand side, right? Because P is exogenous, E is exogenous. That's why same as what you learned in topic 1, right? Because given the price, given the E, this is just a number. Okay, so it's not a choice variable. So there's nothing new here. Okay, and as some of you may ask, if I solve this problem for every single one, right, come up with an X consumption for each one, will it satisfy the feasible allocation, right? That's a question, right? And that is actually the main thing in this model is we will try to argue there exists such a price such that everyone is price taker, they maximize the utility, and there will be some feasible allocation. Okay? Okay, that means actually mean the following. Price is an efficient mechanism to allocate stuff. Okay? And that's what we're trying, and allocate in a good way. So we will try to argue that. But let's see. Okay? How we do the proof? The proof is a little bit complicated. I will try to just give you the taste of it without going into detail. Okay? If you want to know, then we can talk next class, if you still want to know, but we're just being very quick here. So usually people would define this as a proving point. This is the object that we're trying to prove. It's called excess demand. Okay, we define it for every possible good. Okay, so for each element for good K will be just sum of the demand minus this guy, right? Because what we want is feasibility, right? Feasibility requires Z, right, to be 0 or negative. The excess demand negative, right? As long as the price make sure that the excess demand is negative or 0, then there's no problem, right? Because at this price, no one is going to be angry. Okay. Okay, now we have the following, which we don't prove, okay, but I think probably it's okay. This is the excess demand continuous in P. I think that should be fine. The second one is homogeneous in degree 0, which means that if you double the price, everything make no difference. The reason comes from the fact that look at the demand function, you double the price, you double the income, right? So nothing changes, right? Or you go back to the function like here, right? You double the price, the constraint the same, right? Because your endowment become more the same, right? That means that no matter you are trying to talk about US dollar or Hong Kong dollar or renminbi, the same thing, right? No matter what. I guess the last one is the most interesting part. And they call the Wawa's law, which by construction is not very complicated. It simply means that the market value of excess demand is 0, right? Price times that, there's the market value of that. Is that okay? So far I didn't say positive or negative, but it's just say on weighted by the price is 0. Oh, that's the Wawa's law. Okay, so not going to prove it. Okay, actually you can prove it, but anyway, I'm not going to prove it. The idea, the last proof comes from budget constraint. You sum all of them, but this is what the end means. Okay, so I'm not going to prove this part. Okay, so this will be given, but maybe I should prove it. Do I have time? So let me talk about the main idea. The main idea, I prove just the main idea. The main idea why it holds is because your preference monotonic, right? That means that your budget will hold for sure. This one will hold for sure, right? So add them up, then the same thing, right? You add them up for each one, right? That same thing here, right? Because it will hold, this one will also hold for optimal, right? So that's sum up the same thing. Okay, so that is the idea. That is why behind this one. Okay, I'm not going to prove it because, I mean, unless you're doing this work, it doesn't really important, right? I just focus on the knowledge that is transferable to other discipline. Okay, so if in case you want to know, then we can talk about more. So Wawa's law actually implicates the following. Actually, this is important for application as well. Is saying that if suppose n goods, okay, suppose the first n minus 1 market are clear. Clear means the z is 0. Okay, and if you clear the first n minus 1 market, the last one also clear. Okay, so if z1, z2, zn minus 1 all 0, zn also 0. Okay, and that is implication. But let's focus on this one. Okay, so that is exactly what we mean by Lavoisier equilibrium. Lavoisier equilibrium means that exists a price such that the excess demand for each good is non-positive. Okay, that means that you use the price to allocate, there's no shortage. Okay, that's an important part, right? Because you can imagine the old days ideology, right? How about is the market is going to allocate the goods such that no one would feel unhappy, right? Shortage means unhappy, right? Because everyone has endowment, everyone can sell the good. If the price is such that there's no excess, then it's good. Okay, so that is the idea. Okay, so we call this is the main proof. Okay, it's saying that Lavoisier equilibrium exists. The proof involves fixed point theorem, which we will not prove, but the idea is that if people have continuous monotonic quasi-concave demand preference, which I assume already, and endowment are positive, okay, and so everyone have some money, right? There exists a price such that everyone is happy. Okay, given the price, no one is unhappy, right? Because I want to buy more, but I can't, right? Okay, it doesn't tell you how the price comes about, but it only simply said that it's a price such that this doesn't happen. Okay, and everyone's happy, right? Because the way to do it is very standard. I'm not going to say, but it simply means fixed point theorem. Okay, and for those who have no idea what fixed point theorem is, I will give an simple idea what this. Okay, consider a single dimensional function y equal to f of x. Y and x are one dimensional. Okay, x is a domain of x is from 0 to 1. Okay, and y is also 0 to 1. Okay, basically the same set. Okay, and I have 0 to 1, 0 to 1. Okay, it's a function at the same thing. Okay, now what fixed point theorem says the following. Now consider the 45-degree line, okay? 45-degree line. 45-degree line means what? Y equal to X, right? And fixed point theorem said, as long as this F is continuous, there must exist an intercept between the F and this blue line. Why? Let me do this, okay? Let me do the proof, or the proof, okay? So suppose we start this point 0, then we're done. If F0 is 0, then we're done, right? So then F0 is somewhere here, right? If F0 is somewhere here, you try to draw the line, it's continuous. You have to draw to the end. You have to cut the blue line, right? I mean, there's no way you can escape, right? Because remember, X and Y must be from 0 to 1, right? So you cannot go outside, right? So you can start at some point, I don't know, you have to cut, right? At this point, right, you must cut it, right? So Fx equal to X, right? There must be a case. That is called fixed point theorem. And it can generalize to multi-dimensional or whatever, as long as it maps to itself, there exists that's called fixed point theorem. Okay? And I'm not going to explain why it holds and what, but we just given fixed point theorem. Okay? There are many versions. And the version we use is, I think, is Kakuntani fixed point theorem. And this actually holds for Nash equilibrium. Later we will use the same idea, right? It's the strategy is based on the best response. That's what we'll do in the game theory, the same proof. Okay? But the idea is that, okay? So this is fixed point theorem. As long as it satisfies certain criteria, this exists. Okay? And okay. So how can we use fixed point theorem? Okay. The idea is we would try to carefully or smartly write an expression in such a way that if the fixed point exists, this will be the formula. And that is what we try to prove. So the way to do is to define, let me give the intuition for this one. Basically, the tricky part, the smart part is this guy. As long as this guy has fixed point, that means what we want. Okay? Do I have time? Let me quickly do it. If you don't, you get it, don't get it, it's fine. Okay? So you try to do the G of P is this guy. So I want to prove this is a fixed point. Is the idea is this is either given a price, okay, and under this price, right, 0. So this guy must be what? Positive. Not negative, right? So if they're positive, right? So if this is not, if this is negative, right, there will be 0, right? Suppose the case, if that happen to be that set is all 0, right, then we're done, right? Look at this, because if Z is all 0, the max will be 0, right? And left hand side and right side, same thing, right? G of P will be equal to P, right? That's a fixed point idea, okay? As long as fixed point exists, then we're done. Right? That's the idea why this would hold. Let me repeat, right? If Z are all negative, right? And that means the fixed point is there, right? So that is how this being proved, okay? And I'm not going to go to detail because different existent proof is relying on different fixed point theorem, and this only works for this fixed point theorem. If you use another one, they need more careful construction for the other one. But it's always a construction of the fixed point. Okay, and you may ask how they think about how they can smartly think about this. I don't know. You need a very genius to think about this. So what can you learn from this? Probably nothing, right? Unless you are a genius to understand how he thinks. But that's why I don't talk about this, because you need a genius to think about this, and most of us are not genius, maybe some of you yes, but otherwise, I mean, understand the proof will be just understand how I apply fixed point theorem, right? And of course, if you really want to do proof in this dimension, that's fine. I mean, because you just modify different kind of fixed point, but none of you actually doing this, right? So I don't think there's a point of go over that. Okay. That's why I put it black, and I think we do Bauer fixed point theorem, proving this exists, and then we're done. And then there will be continue to prove there exists that, but I don't see the reason I want to do that in the class. Put it this way, maybe if you have time, if you really want to study, you can go and study, and then if you're still confused, we can talk, but otherwise we just keep it there. Okay, you can let me know. Maybe next class, I would do the you reply after you want to go over. If no, then we just skip. Okay. So now we focus on the main result because I want you to take home with the main thing, the definition from here. Okay. So what we have just proved, I mean, we didn't prove it, but we just said that the proof is there exists a Lavoisier equilibrium. There's a price and allocation such that the budget constraint will satisfy, everyone is happy, and there are no excess demand. Right? Okay, so there's an allocation to that. Okay? So the same as taking Z is set P is like non-positive. Okay, so if you show this guy, okay, it's equivalent to this thing happen, right? Because that's a price such that this thing happen, right? If that's not the case, then you can't have this. Okay? I don't see this is very important, but what is important is from now on is more important. Okay? Existence is usually we assume that's there. So important is this one. So we define what is called Pareto efficient. Okay? Pareto efficient is the study where price is no longer in our model. Okay, we just assume that some collaboration goes on. We assume away the mechanism how they arrive. Okay, we just consider what outcome are desirable. Okay, and Pareto efficient is a desirable outcome in the sense that if I set this allocation to Pareto efficient, there's no other allocation that can improve everyone. That means that if you improve someone, other one must be worse off. Let me repeat the statement. Pareto efficient simply means very weak concept. Means there's no way to improve everyone. Okay? And that means if you improve someone, someone must be worse off. Okay? And that's basically the minimum requirement for all economic analysis. Right? Because it is hard to imagine a case that something that's good for everyone, you don't do it. Right? So that's the minimum requirement for this, okay? It's saying that simply here means there is an allocation, is a Pareto efficient. If there's no other allocation, such that everyone is weakly better off, some are strongly better off, okay? And probably some of you may have studied the other concept is they would require this sum to for all. Okay? They change this guy to all. Okay? And there's a strong Pareto efficient and weak Pareto efficiency idea. But in our model, because everything is continuous, actually there's no difference anyway. Okay? Because you can always, if you improve strictly, right, for everyone, for someone, you can just slightly take out something from him, still better, and allocate good to the other. So this is basically no different for our model. Okay. But anyway, this is our concept we use. It's rather weak, right? Because we don't need to improve everyone, right? As long as some of them is stripped off, even one, that that is pretty strict. Okay. So that's why this is called strong Pareto efficiency, because it's very strong, right? If I require this to be for all, they will be weaker. Now, here I think is the main thing of a model is trying to show the Festival theorem said if, okay, the preference, I don't need monotone, actually it is much stronger, but non-satiation actually imply monotone. And what we have is Lavoisier equilibrium is indeed Pareto efficient. Okay? And the idea actually go back to Ashworth box. I'll prove this statement, okay? But the idea is go back to Ashworth box idea, right? Remember Ashworth box, right? There's a guy here, right? And what he said is bunch of indifference curve for him, right? And a woman here, right? That will be a bunch of indifference point for him, right? And there will be usually there will be a Pareto efficient frontier, will be something like this, right? There will be a Pareto efficient frontier set, right? And Lavoisier equilibrium set, okay? This first set, the Lavoisier equilibrium will be along this black curve, okay? And how can we do that? How can we know that, right? Because you learn from the thing is, suppose this endowment, right? And you will have a market, price, right? Like this, such that this is the point where price, right? Actually cut through it, right? Because remember when this Pareto efficient, it means that the red and the blue are mutually tangent to each other, right? They intersect and the tangent is the same, coincide, right? And Lavoisier equilibrium said actually you would cut this and actually they coincide at the same time because they face the same price, right? So that is what the Lavoisier equilibrium means, right? Because that will be the joint line will be here, right? That's what it means. Is that clear? I mean, you learn it in the intermediate if you learn it, okay? But don't worry when you prove it in math, okay? Because this only holds for 2 good, right? But we want to extend this to in general case, then actually you need the math, right? And this is the part we prove it because I think this is simple enough that we should prove it. Is that okay? Let's do the proof. Okay, the proof is not complicated. Okay. Now the proof start with the what we call the concept of proof by contradiction. Okay. Although this proof is not very useful in your case, but I guess the idea of proving is very useful because you assume something and try to prove it just by saying assume it's not true, then we try to see. Right? We assume the conclusion is not right and we reach contradiction. That is the way we do the proof. Okay? The way to prove is we say it's Lavoisier equilibrium but not Pareto efficient, right? Because this is our condition and this is our conclusion, and we assume the conclusion is not true and we arrive a contradiction. That will be the proof. Okay? So the way to do is if not Pareto efficient, it means what? It means that there are another allocation that weakly improve all and strongly improve some, right? That is mean by not Pareto efficient. And the next thing is we argue it must be more expensive. Okay? How we argue that? We will argue this point. This one is more expensive. Why? If it is strictly cheaper, okay? If it's cheaper than for some people, and that guy would have bought it, right? And if that guy bought it, then violate Lavoisier equilibrium, right? Lavoisier equilibrium means everyone would consume the best, okay? So violate. So it must be the budget cannot be cheaper than what we have, right? Cannot be cheaper than the Lavoisier equilibrium. Now, step number 3, okay? It must also cannot be equal, right? Because equal with the same idea, okay? Someone would prefer it, then they would buy it, right? So basically, same idea, right? So it must be the case that some people must have strength, because it cannot be all equal, right? If all equal, then it's wrong. Okay, wrong. Okay, and if that's the case, you summing up the inequality, right? That's what you get. The total market value is more than the market value of that. Okay. Now here comes the next step. Okay. Remember, the no pronunciation means that, or monotonicity imply you will use up your money, right? So total value of market value of your endowment should be same as your Lavoisier equilibrium outcome, right? And combine that, you consume more than the market value higher than that, right? So that's not feasible. Okay, is that okay? Now, remember this is the first consequence we want to have, okay? We come all the way from the budget, right? Saying that if there is a outcome that is making somebody happier, it must be more expensive for some agent. Now, we need to put the second thing is actually coming from the construction, saying that what everyone have cannot be more than they cannot consume what they have. Okay, that's very simple. Okay, first we claim that it's feasible. Okay, because that's called feasible allocation, right? Is you say allocation that's better and is feasible, that cannot be more than endowment, right? And the price are non-negative, so you can multiply price, the inequality remains the same. And the next part is you sum all good, right? And get up this one. Okay? So from the feasibility, right, and positive price, the price you consume cannot be more than your endowment, right? So contradict previous one. So contradiction. So let me repeat the logic. I mean, although it's not very important because probably you don't care anymore, because I don't care as well. I don't use it in my daily life, but it's good to see how they prove it. Okay. The idea is start from the condition you give me is whether there's a Lavoisier equilibrium but not Pareto efficient. But by Pareto efficient, okay, improve getting the utility maximization, okay, and the budget under the budget constraint, it means that it must be more expensive, right? Because if it's not expensive, you would have done it, right? And the next part will be together with no pronunciation means it is more expensive than what you can afford. Okay, but given the feasibility, right, positive price, what you can consume cannot be more than what you have, so violation. So that means done, right? But one simply must be that, right? But probably it's fine, right? I don't see that would be very complicated. Okay? But of course, as I said, the proof is not important. I'm just showing you the way to prove it, right? You assume the condition and the conclusion. The conclusion is not true. You try to derive a lot of property and figure out the contradiction, right? Although I present this in a nice manner, but how actually people want to do is like you try to figure out from this you derive a bunch of property, okay, you figure out there's a contradiction, then you're done. Okay, that is a usual work. But here I present in the way that okay, it seems everything very logical, right? But actually, when you actually do it, you like all the math, right? You just derive all the property and figure out that is a contradiction. Is that okay? Now, here comes to the second welfare theorem. Okay. The second welfare theorem actually requires slightly one more definition. We would require, as you can check, we require quasi-concavity. Okay. And actually, we also require multiplicity more because, and you said the first welfare theorem only require some more simpler. But anyway, here we have Pareto efficient allocation, okay? And the question is, okay, if we start from here, okay, we start from here, is this a Lavoisian equilibrium? Let me repeat the statement. There are many Pareto efficient outcomes, right? Remember the actuarial box along the black curve, right? The question is, if we start from any Pareto efficient outcome, put the market there, okay? Is this outcome supported by the market? Or in other words, can market support Pareto efficient outcome? Right? If I told you there's a Pareto efficient, okay? You put the market there, okay? Is the market going to change or the market keep the same outcome? Okay? Or the market going to destroy the Pareto efficient outcome? Right? So that's the idea. And if that's the case, if there exists such a price that would make everyone remain there, that means the following. Okay, that is what we call second welfare theorem. Suppose the government can move your endowment around, okay? Then you can achieve any Pareto efficient outcome. The idea is the following. The idea is the following, right? Just go back to the graph. I think that's the easiest thing, right? Let me redraw this diagram. Okay, this is the actuarial box, right? And the guy in different curve like this, right? And the girl in different like this. I'm not going to draw a boy and girl again. Okay? And you can have a this is the Pareto efficient set, right? And the next is what we said, the first welfare theorem set is the following, right? And you suppose you start with whatever endowment, right? You consider a price that you can always find a price, cut to here, such that they are tangent to each other, right? And the second welfare theorem set, the following. Suppose you start from somewhere here, okay? You can always find a price such that everyone is happy here, okay? And that means that if you want to implement a particular outcome like this, okay, what you can do is have a government or planner move your endowment to here or somewhere along the line, wherever here, and let the market work and reach out this one. Okay? Is that clear what the second welfare said? It's just saying that every Pareto efficient outcome can be implemented as Lavoisian equilibrium. Okay? Or it means if you're able to transfer, you grab money from the others, okay? And they don't complain, okay? Then you're okay, right? Suppose you can go to Chai, then you can do it, okay? Is that okay? You can reallocate your stuff, okay? So how can we prove this? I think it's good to do a proof here because it's very simple. The proof will be the following. Suppose, okay, where existence means there will be a Lavoisian equilibrium in the X star. Okay, remember what we are proving is proving this statement. Okay, there is a Pareto efficient outcome. Okay, okay, and suppose we start with the endowment that is exactly same as X star. That's why I said, right? You start with the point in the Pareto efficient. Okay? And that, remember, that need not be the same outcome, right? The Lavoisier equilibrium. So even though you start with that, we may end up in somewhere else. Okay? Because that is what we want to prove, right? Actually, we want to prove actually this is actually X bar is actually X star, right? Because we want to say we start from Pareto efficient outcome. At the end, under the market, under some price, we end up the same outcome. Okay? So suppose we don't end up same outcome. Okay? This is the X bar. How do we do it? Utility maximization imply, okay, this is Lavoisier equilibrium, right? It must be, everybody must be at least as happy as the endowment, right? And remember, X star is Pareto efficient, right? Then it must be the same, right? Because it can't be the other way around. All right? If there's some strict inequality, that's not Pareto efficient. So at most, that must be, and if this is not the same, it must be just equal, right? Cannot be better. And second thing is, more budget is balanced. Okay, I forget the G here. Budget is balanced. That means that they would use up all the money, right? So under the price P star, budget is the same. Okay? And because by construction, utility maximize under P star and X star, right? So this is also a Lavoisier equilibrium. Okay, because they're the same, right? And no, this guy getting happier. He consumed at this is also satisfy all the constraint, right? And okay, so that means that this same as this guy. Okay, if you start from there, okay, everything the same. Okay, and then we're done. That's what I prove. There exists. This is the same, right? There's another Lavoisier equilibrium. We start from there, achieve that thing, right? Suppose you have this, you have this. We prove it. Okay. If you don't follow the proof, doesn't matter because it's not. I mean, because it's very obvious from the graph diagram, right? Just the way we extend. And as I said, this two welfare theorem is simple to prove. I just show it, and it's not important for our purpose because it's not really transferable to other. The thing is, you remember, is the Pareto efficient. And the next thing, this is important, is what do we mean by individual rational blocking and core. That will be the important thing that I want you to remember. Okay. The first is what we call individual rational. Individual rational means compare the right hand side, the ER is given his starting point. The starting point here. What they have, they don't enter the system. And this is the system allocated to him. Okay? We will say IR if you allocate things that don't make him worse off, then he just stand alone. Okay? Okay? So, and if he is not happy, then just exit the system, right? So next is called blocking. So the idea is this is individual, this is more like a group, okay? Or group rational, you can say, right? And I would say allocation, okay, is blocked by some group of people, S is a subset of I, some group of people. If there's an allocation is feasible, it's important, it's feasible. Okay? There's another feasible allocation, okay? Such that, okay, these S people, this group of people, okay, among themselves, okay, this Y among themselves is sufficiently reallocate among themselves in a way that they all better off weekly and should be better off. Okay? Just means that it's blocked if some of the people bring their own resources, okay, better than what you propose to them under X. Okay? You tell them X is good allocation. Okay? And say, for some people, they go away, they reallocate their resources. Then they're better, right? That's, okay? Is that okay? Now, it's very simple to get definition, but do remember this kind of definition, because here comes the most important one. It's called core. Core is the allocation that's not blocked by any group, okay? And this core will be useful for a lot of purpose. So you want to talk about some group agent interact, okay? Of course, you can use Nash equilibrium, but you need to define how they behave, how they work, right? But you can define when they combine together, what's the payoff, right? And once you do that, then you can define what is the possible way they do together, and you're done, right? And as long as you tell them how to allocate their resources, then you're done, right? This is one way straightforward to apply in your practice, okay? But this here, I have the market, right? And alternatively, it means the following, right? The core means that there's no other allocation, okay, such that this doesn't happen, right? There's no blocking happen. Okay? The core, if there's no other feasible allocation, such that for some group of agent, oh sorry, this will be I, okay, so be I, such that using their own resources, some people slightly better off, or people are weakly better off. So no one can break away from that. Okay, that's the equilibrium concept, right? Idea, some of equilibrium, right? But they don't tell you what action they actually take, but just saying that they go away, it's better. Okay, and this concept is very useful, and then it's transferable to many other scenarios, not just market. Anything you assign to them, you design the market design. This is something important. Okay, now why is it important? Because by definition, very simple, okay? It's very simple. You see, core means individual rational, because core means any group size, individual rational just one guy, right? So core include individual. And core also means perturbition. Perturbition is the group is everyone, right? So core is a generalization of individual rational and perturbition, okay? No, not one can deviate, not everyone can deviate, not some group can deviate. Okay? Now with that, we would give you the following solution. Okay? First is Bava's equilibrium is core, which you don't prove. Okay? Which is much stronger than what we have, right? It's very strong, right? Because Pareto efficient is there, right? Individual is there, but also group deviation are there, right? There's no way some of the people can back away from the market, from their own small market, right? You can see this is very strong here. A big market is done, right? You don't have to have another market, another set of price. They're actually better. There's no way you can improve. Okay? And the proof is very simple, which I don't want to show. Here I come the very last proof, the last statement of proof, is what we call, so we have said Pareto efficient is in the core, right? So what about the reverse statement? Can every core be a Pareto efficient, right? Because that's like the first welfare theorem, is every Bava's equilibrium is Pareto efficient, right? Every Bava's equilibrium is in the core. So the reverse case is, can every core allocation is implemented by the market? Okay, the answer is almost, if you allow the market large enough. Okay, it's what we call the limit theorem of the core. Okay? I mean, I don't want to go to detail because it's very technical, but what it said is the market is big enough. Okay, I don't want to quantify that, but that would say that is Bava's equilibrium. So that's why we like the market, because market is pretty robust. I mean, if you allow a lot of stuff, it still works pretty well, and the market is large enough. When N is very big, that will be fine. Okay. So of course, I don't talk about SEP value, other thing as well, but these actually inside. Okay, just I think one or 2 minutes. But give me 1 minute. I just talk about some extension which doesn't really matter anyway. So this thing, when we have production, the same. Here I don't have production, right? It's endowment. But when you have the production, same thing. You allow firm there is the same. Okay, that's no problem. I'm not going to talk about this because not really useful. And second, what happens when you have uncertainty, which people in finance would care, right? Because here I have a static world, and uncertainty applies if there's a market for future goods. If for every possible future, which we'll talk about next class about uncertainty, if I can have a state contingent good, okay, if I have a good for sale, say an umbrella when there's rain, umbrella is sunshine, umbrella is cloudy, I have good for each possible scenario of the world. This thing hold, but probably argue doesn't exist this market, so there's a problem. Okay, and as I said, that would be the idea what we call the model. Why we need money, right? Because of that, not everything is possible for trade. Okay, so that's why there's a lot of stuff here. But for this only relevant when you from a finance, okay? Only the free fund people would care about this. So I'm not going to talk about this, but there's a whole big chapter in the mass correlation we talk about this. Not in the Jahir and Vani textbook, but the very thick textbook, we'll talk about this. And they're very nice treatment, but I'm not going to talk about those. Okay? And I want to, this last slide, because I have said, market equilibrium is very good. Okay? So what's the problem? The problem will be asymmetric information, which we'll cover when we talk about game theory. We don't have time to talk about in general, but you probably know the Lehman market, probably long undergrad. It's because of asymmetry, the market doesn't exist, right? And the second one is transaction cost, right? Because of trading has some problem, you need some cost to enforcement, so that's why it's not perfect. That some trade doesn't exist. And the last one is incomplete market, right? And also the thing, not everyone is price taker. We don't put it here because strategic reason. So that's why I don't learn game theory. Okay. So all in all, what we have discussed today, just sorry, 1 more minute, just summarize a little bit. So we talk about partial equilibrium, right? With a Carnot, we have Bertrand, we have monopolistic competition, right? We also have perfect competition as well. So this is the basic model that you use, apply in practice. And we learn general equilibrium, although it's quick, but I want to show you the main result in microeconomics, right? That's the main result is Wawasa equilibrium exists, and if they exist, the first welfare theorem said they're Pareto efficient, and second welfare theorem said every Pareto efficient outcome can be implemented as a market. Right? There's a Wawasa equilibrium there, and we talk about more general talk about core, right? We allow Wawasa equilibrium is everything in the core. And every core is also a Wawasa equilibrium if the market is large enough. And I hint that it also extends to other more stuff as well. And that's what I want to say. And here is something doesn't hold. That's what we study for the rest of the semester. Okay? I'll see you next week. Next week I have class. No, I have no class, right? Next Thursday. So we have to figure out some way to make it up.